Hey everyone, Raptorspank here, and today we have another episode of On the Grind, the show where I cover a deck I'm playing in Ranked. We'll break down the deck, talk about some flex spots, go over basic mulligans, and then we'll put it through a few ranked matches and review how we do afterwards. So this week we'll be covering Frostbite Midrange. I had a couple of decks that I had in mind for this week, but Frostbite Midrange is finally getting the episode it was supposed to get weeks ago, but then Fizzlusive stole its spot, but now we have it. Frostbite Midrange, it's a typical kind of mid-rangey deck where you're just trying to build up a good board state, and then you're using a number of things to try and leverage that board state. So we have things like Reckoning to serve as sort of a one-sided board wipe, hopefully. It'll usually hit some of your own stuff, but it should hit a lot more of your opponent's stuff than yours. And then we have a lot of Frostbite spells to do a couple of different things. Set up good trades for our side by basically preventing their units from dealing damage to ours while our units shred theirs. And then, in addition, it helps to turbo level our Ashe, which helps for the end game, essentially making it so your opponent can't block and you just full swing. But in addition to that, we have a couple other value cards, things like Troll Chant to keep our stuff alive and reduce the damage our opponent does. We have Culling Strike as just removal that works really well with the Frostbite aspects. And then we've got things like Trifarian Assessor to draw us a bunch of cards, and Captain Farron to give us some decimates to close out the game. But ultimately, we're trying to play extremely cost-effective units, usually with 5 or more power, and then using a bunch of Frostbite utility spells to just make sure that our board state stays better than our opponent's. Now, let's break down the deck, starting with the champion package. So, first off, this begins with the 3 copies of Ashe. So, as I mentioned, this is kind of one of the big combo pieces of the deck. Essentially, we have a lot of ways to cause Frostbite to level her up quick. And we can even get some powerful OTKs with her by leveling her up and then using something like Harsh Winds and Open Attacking just to Frostbite. In that case, that would be up to 3 units because 2 off Harsh Winds and then 1 off her attack trigger. And then if they can't block, we do a ton of damage with a bunch of 5-powered units. So she's just kind of our ultimate game plan for forcing enough damage through, because even if we spend most of the early game dealing very little damage, if you can land an Ashe and then basically Frostbite their board and swing with everything, we can definitely deal 20 damage or more in a single turn. So she's just kind of an ultimate value engine, and if we got one in play, we can use the champion spell as sort of another Frostbite for fairly cheap. Which is particularly effective against things like Lee Sin, which used to be a problem for this deck. So that's the big idea. She just provides a good Frostbite payoff for the deck. And then we have 2 copies of Sejuani. So this is one of our few overwhelming threats, and just in general can be really, really powerful. We aren't particularly designed to level her up quickly, but we can get her leveled up decently, and then once that happens, we just get a ton of value off of swinging with something that's going to get damage through, which then will Frostbite the rest of the board. Or if we can find some way, like a Captain Farron Decimate, to cause them to Frostbite the board with an Ashe out, then we can swing with everything and they can't block. It's just ultimately a really good value card for the deck because of the fact that she has Overwhelm, and her champion spell can be really good for keeping things alive or forcing that extra bit of damage through. So Sejuani's not really the primary goal of the deck, but just another really good value card to have in there. So now let's talk about the follower package. First off, we have 2 copies of Omenhawk. This is just another good value piece. It gives us a solid chump blocker on turn 1, which can be really good into the aggro matchups, and then it just pumps the rest of the things in our deck, which can be pretty valuable, especially when we start putting like 5/5 Yetis on the top of our deck. So this is just a good way to make all of our cards even more potent. And then we have 2 copies of Avarosan Sentry. This is just another good value 2-drop since it draws us a card when it dies, so it can keep our hand full and cycling through cards. It can trade with a lot of things because of the 2 power, so it's just another good value card for the deck. And then getting a little more into our combo Frostbite package, we have 3 copies of Icevale Archer. This is just a very powerful and aggressive body that also gets us to leveling our Ashe quicker and can be used to shut down a number of things. One, this gets around, say, Bastion on a Lee Sin, whereas the Frostbite spells will get stopped by Bastion, Icevale Archer does not get stopped. So it's a good way to deal with decks like that. And just in general, it's a really aggressive turn 2 where you just play that and you Frostbite their blocker, so their blocker's not going to want to block because then they'll just lose him. And this trades with a lot of things since it has 3 powers. So it's just a good value card for our deck that's aggressive, cheap, and gets us to leveling our Ashe quickly. And then we have our first 5-power unit in the deck, which is 3 copies of Trifarian Glory Seeker. This card is extremely powerful in our deck because, A, we have a lot of Troll Chants to keep it alive, but even more than that, we have a lot of Frostbite spells. So often, this won't even die from combat, and it'll just kill whatever our opponent or whatever we drag to it for our opponent. So it's usually our best version of removal, essentially, is just to frostbite their thing and pull it with Glory Seeker, and then even if they can kill the Glory Seeker, if the combat still happens, we'll probably kill most things because of that 5 power. And just in general, it sets us up to use Reckoning. It sets us up for a lot of value, essentially. It sets up our Assessors. It sets up the Reckoning, as I mentioned. So it's just a really strong value card that comes down early and gets those conditions met for us extremely on curve. So that's the big value in that. And then one of the key cards of the deck, we have 3 copies of Avaros and Trapper. This is a really good 3/3 for 3. That's great value on its own, but it's going to put a 1-mana 5/5 in our deck, and that's the big thing, is that 1-mana 5/5 is hard for many decks to deal with. And just like Glory Seeker, this enables our Reckonings, this enables our Assessors, so it's just a really good value card. So essentially this is like a 2-for-1 almost. Even though we're going to still have to draw the Yeti, it's still really, really strong to basically have that 5/5 guaranteed to come in the next 3 draws. And then it itself is a very powerful body with 3 power, so it can trade with a lot of things. If we manage to hit it with Omen Hawk, it'll be like a 4/4, which is another really problematic card for our opponent to deal with. So it just gives us a lot of value. And then we have 2 copies of Babbling Bjerg. This essentially is a tutor for one of our 5-cost, our 5-power units. We do have a number of them, so it doesn't really work as like some decks, particularly Zombie Ashe was one of those decks where essentially the only thing it would hit was Ashe, so it would always find your Ashe. But in our deck, it can hit a number of things, so it's not really a tutor-specific thing. It's more, hey, we need something that enables Reckoning or Assessor, and let's just find it. Or just, we're going to tutor up one of our big creatures and use that to beat our opponent down. So yeah, it's just another good value card because A, it's a 4-mana 3/3, so that's a powerful body, but it's also going to come with another card in our hand that is going to be a big-bodied card. So it's just a good way to keep our engine running. And then we have 3 copies of Avaros and Hearthguard. So this is just another super value card. It's a 5/5 for 5, and it's going to buff all the units in our deck, which we have a lot of good units in our deck, so buffing them is really, really good. So yeah, enables our Assessors, enables our Reckoning. Really good value card, just all around. And then that brings us to the 3 copies of Trifarian Assessor. This is one of the things that really stands out for us over other mid-range decks, is that a lot of mid-range decks struggle with card advantage. Fiora Shen's kind of the exception to that rule, but a lot of mid-range decks start running out of cards, and so basically they have to have the biggest board state and be able to win with that board state by the time they hit 0 in their hand. And we don't have that problem as much because we have a lot of 5-power units, and then Assessor can keep cycling through our deck and drawing us a bunch of cards, so we're going to see most of our threats, so we're going to see most of our value cards, and it's just going to make it so we can get away with lower numbers on some important cards, like only 2 Reckonings, because we're going to draw through a lot of our deck compared to other mid-range decks. And then finally, I have 1 copy of Captain Farron. This is just a finisher for the deck. It's a little bit weaker now after the nerfs, especially in this deck. Like, this deck got hit harder than I would say Ezreal Draven did for this, because we really did kind of want the 3 decimates, but it's still a great value drop for the deck. It's expensive at 8, but it's an 8/8 for 8 with Overwhelm, so the damage will get forced through. It gives you those decimates, so if your opponent can gum up the board and keep blocking your attackers because we don't have a lot of Overwhelmers, that's fine, because we can use the decimates to close that last bit of distance, and that's ultimately what the card is here for. It's just a great finisher for the deck. Now let's talk about the spell package. First off, we have 2 copies of Brittle Steel. This is just high value, super cheap, burst speed, Frostbite. It's going to be one of our best in the early game. It's going to fall off towards the late, so you kind of want to be proactive with it, but it's really good for, say, combining with Glory Seeker to make sure that we keep our Glory Seeker and kill something of our opponents. And it can just catch a lot of value things like, say, Draven or Jinx, etc. And it can be used with Culling Strike to kill some of those early threats. Then we have 2 copies of Troll Chant, another good way to keep things like Glory Seeker alive because we can reduce the damage of our opponent, or buff the health, or do both if we need that much to make the difference. But often what I'll end up doing with Troll Chant is reducing the power on something else and buffing the health on another thing. That way, two basic blocks go well for us, rather than just the one. So it's a really good tool for basically breaking the symmetry in particularly mid-range matchups. But there's a lot of valuable matchups where this can be good. It's particularly great for lowering the power on a quick attacker like, say, Jinx or Draven, and then buffing the health of something else so that we make sure we kill it. And then that brings us to 3 copies of Culling Strike. This is just really good because It's a decent value removal spell. 3 mana for anything that's 3 power or less is pretty good. But since we have so many ways to frostbite our opponent or reduce the power of our opponent's threats, this can kill pretty much any threat they have. And that's the big reason we're running this over other removal, is that we have so many ways to make this kill anything. Like, you can kill a Captain Farron with this. Just flash freeze the Captain Farron and then Culling Strike. It's just a good, neat little catch-all for any threat our opponent might be able to present. And then we have 2 copies of Flash Freeze. Again, this is a nice little neat catch-all where Brittle Steel requires them to have 3 health or less. This can hit anything for 3 mana at burst speed, so that's bankable mana. It's just a really good value card for getting us to leveling up the Ashe, and it's just kind of a concession to decks like Lee Sin existing that we just need a lot of ways to frostbite things like Lee Sin. And then we have 2 copies of Harsh Winds. This is the turbo level Ashe plan. It can also be really good for getting that 1-turn combo kill because it frostbites 2 things at burst speed, so you can frostbite 2, then swing with Ashe, and Ashe will frostbite another, and if Ashe is leveled up, then they can't block with the things that are frostbite, so it's just a good way to set up that 1-turn combo kill. And again, it can be used to enable a number of things like Glory Seeker being one-sided, or Reckoning, which brings us to the final card in our spell package, 2 copies of Reckoning. We have a lot of 5-power units, and this can answer a lot of strategies. It's really good against things like Fizz Elusives, where we'll kill basically everything they have, because even Suit Up's not enough to get them past the Reckoning, so that's really, really strong. But even it can kill things with 5 power by using it with Frostbite. Now, it's hard to use, say, like Harsh Winds and Reckoning, because we need the full 12 mana, but you can get away with things like Brittle Steel and Flash Freeze, or using Troll Chant to reduce power and then use Reckoning, or even attack with an Ashe, frostbiting their best unit, and then Reckoning afterwards to kill that unit outright. It's just a really good high-value thing. And while we do have some things that die to it, like Trapper, Bjerg, and Trifarian Assessor if it hasn't gotten buffed, Omen Hawk, Sentry, that can happen. We can kill a lot of our own units, but our most important units live through a Reckoning unless they frostbite our stuff. So it's just usually really valuable for us and not as valuable for our opponent. So it's just a good one-sided board wipe. And that's the deck. So now let's talk about the flex spots. Alright, so flex spots for the deck. Big thing with this deck compared to some other decks is that you can really play with the numbers a lot with this. So first off, like the two of Omen Hawk, a lot of people are going to prefer 3 of on Omen Hawk just to have that early game pressure and just answer for early game threats, just to have something out there to block. So you can go up Omen Hawks, you can go up Brittle Steels, you'd go down stuff like Flash Freeze, you can go down the Captain Farron. A big change I made is that I went down a Babbling Bjerg to go up a Farron, so you could do the inverse of that. You can go down the Farron, up a Babbling Bjerg. That'll make your curve a little bit lower and a little bit faster pace, but I personally made that change because I ran into this deck on the ladder, and I ran into them running Farron, and I was set to win the game, and then Farron presented a problem I couldn't solve, and I just liked his closeout potential, so when I started playing the deck this season, I made that swap immediately because, again, the way the deck has shaped with things like Hearthguard in there, it's not going to be as good for Babbling Bjerg because it's not going to give you a consistent tutor. It's going to grab a lot of different things. So personally, I preferred having that closeout of Farron, but that's the way you can go. You can go down things like Troll Chant, go up Brittle Steel, down Flash Freeze, up Brittle Steel, down Brittle Steel, up Flash Freeze. Depending on how the meta is going, you can just play with those numbers a lot. And you can go down Sentry, up other things. There's a lot of things you could do with the numbers. But as for some actual changes, some of the big things that occur right off the bat to me is like some people will go Ruthless Raider over Avaros and Sentry. It doesn't necessarily combo well with our deck, but with things like Assessor, we might not necessarily need the card draw, and Ruthless Raider is going to put a lot more pressure on our opponents, so that will speed up our kill and speed up our clock because of that overwhelm, and just having more overwhelm threats is always good. So it's a more threatening body than Sentry, for sure, without a doubt, and it's harder to kill than Sentry, but it doesn't draw you a card, so it depends on how you want, but that's definitely a way you can go if you feel like the deck needs to be a little bit quicker or a little more aggressive. Similar vein, some people do play Reckless Trifarian. It's fallen off a lot lately. It was more when this deck started out, because the inability to block can really be a hindrance, but it's a 3-mana 5/4 that's really good in the deck. A lot of decks aren't prepared for that on turn 3, and that can cause a lot of problems for a lot of different decks. So that's something you can consider as well if you want to go up a more aggressive end, is maybe drop like the Sentries for Ruthless Raiders, then maybe drop something like Hearthguard for Reckless Trifarian just to speed up the clock. And then one of the most traditional changes with the deck, something you see played a lot, is instead of probably Hearthguard is the easiest thing to replace here, but you could replace Babbling Bjerg potentially, but the card advantage is pretty strong with it. But Kato the Arm, some number of them, you go down maybe like Farron and a Hearthguard and go up 2 Katos or something like that. But that's seen a lot of play in this deck because it turns your huge threats that can be chump blocked very easily into real threats that have Overwhelm and cannot be chump blocked so easily. So that's probably the best change you can make, is try to put a Kato the Arm in there somewhere. Either, again, Hearthguard's probably going to be your best replacement because it's the easiest swap because they're both 5 mana, 5 power. Kato's just going to have 1 less health and he's not going to buff the deck, but he is going to buff what's on the field right now and give it Overwhelm. So, yeah, that's a big consideration to make. As for spells and other sort of things, one of the big things you can do is you can go down Troll Chant and up like Elixir of Iron because it's a much cheaper form of protection, but obviously it's not going to combo with Culling Strike. And just in general make it easier to reduce the damage your opponent does. So I personally think Troll Chant's worth a little bit more, but we don't always have a lot of banked mana available, so going Elixir of Iron can definitely be good just for keeping things like Turn 2 Glory Seeker alive and stuff like that, where Troll Chant's not going to be able to do that. So that's a real consideration to make. Right now, it's probably not the best with how much discard aggro is out there, but it's really good into Piltover base removal heavily because something like a Turn 2 Glory Seeker, they're just going to try to Mystic Shot that, and if you can Elixir and keep it alive through Mystic Shot, you're going to deal a ton of damage that turn, and that's just going to set them up at a very hard clock. So in metas like that, Elixir of Iron is going to outweigh Troll Chant. Now this one I was hesitant to include, but just as an FYI out there, you could go down some sort of spell to go up Might. That's going to be good if you are trying to go more aggressive, but generally speaking, if you're looking for more Overwhelm, I tend to prefer Kato the Arm, but that is a consideration you can make. You could also do something like Call of the Wild, or not Call of the Wild, but the one that summons the Yeti. That's another strong option too, although we aren't the most Yeti-focused deck. So both of those spells have some worth, but they're overall kind of mediocre in the deck, but something you could consider. And then finally, probably the best consideration you could make in that field is possibly adding Noxcrya Arena. This has been in and out of the list in the past. It's mostly gone out of the list, but it's something you can definitely consider because, A, we have really strong units that can usually survive a hit like that and should outvalue their weakest units, but more importantly, because we have so many ways to Frostbite, we can even kill their best units this way. So Noxcrya does get a lot of value in this deck. It's not really enough for me to run it, but it's something to definitely consider if you feel like you need a little more removal. It's going to do really well for that. And since it happens at the end of turn, it's really good for setting up good open attacks as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's definitely a worthwhile option. So with that, let's talk about basic mulligans. Alright, so for the mulligans, the basic thing you want to do is just look for a nice good curve out and just great places to get utility. If you're not playing anything on turn 2, look to be getting some value out of that banked mana. If you're not playing anything on turn 1, look to get some value out of that banked mana. Things like Brittle Steel to pay off from that. Or if you're banking all 3 mana and going into turn 3 with unit plus Flash Freeze. But essentially you don't want to hold too many top-end cards. In fact, generally speaking, I mulligan pretty much any 5 power card. So anything from 4 cost up, I pretty much mulligan. The only exceptions to that are going to be in certain matchups it's worth keeping an Ashe, and actually in most matchups it's probably worth keeping an Ashe in your hand, or it's probably worth keeping a Babbling Bjerg. So I think those are worth keeping. Basically everything else I'd rather mulligan and have as a better top deck with the 5 cost power units. Aside from Glory Seeker, since Glory Seeker's 2 cost, that's down on the curve. So it's basically anything above 3, I'm not going to keep in my opener most times, with the exception of spells. If it's a matchup where Reckoning's going to be good, I'll keep Reckoning. I pretty much won't keep a Harsh Winds in my opener in most circumstances because of how mana intensive it is. And like I said, I'm looking for a good curve. I'm looking to do something in the first 2 turns, but with only 4 cards that fall into that category, that's not always easy to guarantee. But certainly by turn 3, I'm playing a unit, no matter what. That's every hand I'm looking for that. And you're just going to look to try and build the best board you can. I'll keep a Trapper in my opening hand every single game. It really doesn't matter of the matchup. I'm always going to keep Trapper in my hand. I'm basically always going to keep an Omen Hawk, just like no matter what the matchup is. So those are the big things you want to look for. Culling Strike can be good into a number of matchups, but going into a little more of a breakdown of specific matchups, in aggro, you want a lot of early game units just to get control of the board, because that's going to be your best chance. We don't have ways to gain life, so we really just want to control that early game. Reckoning's going to be huge, because it's good into actually pretty much every aggro matchup. A lot of them can't deal with your 5 power, but just be careful not to, like, say, Reckoning with only a Glory Seeker being your unit, because they usually can kill that, but anything like an Enraged Yeti or a Hearthguard is going to be able to survive whatever they throw at it. Or if you have, say, like Ashe with Troll Chant up, so you can Reckoning and Troll Chant, then you're probably solid in that too. But generally speaking, Reckoning is going to be your best answer, because even into something like Discard Aggro, where it's going to be the worst out of all the aggro matchups, the good thing there is that their big problem for you is Jinx, and survival skills will not save them from Reckoning. The only thing that will save them from Reckoning is leveling up the Jinx, but you can get around that with a number of things like a Brittle Steel. Just make sure that if you think they can level up in response to Reckoning, Brittle Steel, then Reckoning. Because if they level up, you're not going to be able to Brittle Steel her anymore. And if they level her up after Brittle Stealing her, she's still going to die. And like I said, survival skills won't save her from that. So that's really good. It's also really, really good into Fizzlusives, because they're going to play out their board because they have to kill you, and then you can Reckoning in response, and they're not going to have any way to counter that or prevent that from happening. So those are the big matchups where you're going to really want that Reckoning. And then in general, you're just going to want a lot of units and early game proactive things. Stuff like Brittle Steel. Troll Chant is really good into aggro because it reduces their damage and saves one of your units. Again, Omen Hawk, Avaros and Sentry, Trapper, those are really good drops into the aggro matchup. Even more than Glory Seeker, because a lot of aggro decks can kill Glory Seeker. So that's what you're looking for in that. In mid-range matchups, you're looking for a lot of really powerful units. Trapper, again, really good in this matchup. Glory Seeker is going to be good in that, because you can kill most of their things with Glory Seeker, and then just have a bunch of utility spells to back that up. So Brittle Steel, Flash Freeze, even a Harsh Winds is worth potentially keeping. And then against a lot of mid-range decks, Reckoning can actually be pretty devastating, because a lot of decks like Plaza Scouts and Fiora Shen, for example, aren't necessarily going to get their power above 5. They're just going to have a lot of ways to protect their units. And yeah, Deny will stop a Reckoning, but they can give barrier to their units as much as they possibly want. It's still going to die to Reckoning. So that's where it's actually going to be more valuable than you might normally expect. But the big thing is really aggressive, powerful units that are going to force them to trade, and then Frostbite. Just lots of Frostbite to make sure that you're not trading, they're just dying. So that's the big stuff in the mid-range matchups. Into control, that's where you're going to be a little more hard-pressed, so you're definitely going to want early game action, and just try to stay ahead of them. Things like Troll Chant can be good for preventing things from dying to Vile Feast, but basically just try to do as much damage as you can. A lot of control decks are going to struggle against stuff like Enraged Yeti, so the Trapper plus Yeti, plus anything else with 3 health or more is going to cause problems for them, so just pick durable threats. And then stuff like Assessor and Captain Farron are exceptionally good in the matchup, because we're not going to be able to stop a Ruination, but the best thing we can do is make sure that we still have plenty of gas in the tank after Ruination. Farron is great for that, because of the decimates it gives, but also just Trifarian Assessor, keeping your hand full, allows you to always have backups in hand to play once they remove your board, so that's something to look for in that matchup. But generally speaking, just try to force as much damage as you can early, and then hopefully you can close out with decimates off of a Farron. That's where that card is going to be the best out of all the possible matchups. So yeah, that's the basic mulligans for the deck, and that is the deck for this episode. So if this looks like something you're interested in, there's a deck link as well as a deck code in the description below. And now let's take it into rank and see how we do. Wow, IF elusives, huh? What a weird thing to see these days. Man, I am having such terrible luck with my hands today. Holy crap, this hand's terrible. Literally the worst. This is not much better. I mean, yeah, we'll be able to do something with all this Frostbite at least. Culling Strike for a turn 3 Zed is pretty good at least. Although I suppose we don't need to Culling Strike Zed. Okay. Fine by me.
The trap is set.
Gonna get one closer to Sejuani.
I am
There's the Zed.
in the darkness.
Actually, you know what? This gives me the chance of not... Okay, so I get the Sejuani proc anyways. I was gonna say, that gives me a chance of not, but I'd rather have this Omen Hawk to block. Ooh, that is potentially good. What's he got? So he definitely has Twin Disciplines because he's thinking about it. So I could do this, plus that.
Carrots can fly, Rip!
Okay. Do I want to play this or do I want to play that? I'll play Sentry.
Border from here.
We're gonna lose our Omen Hawk here.
Way, go!
Probably. Although I suppose I don't need to lose the Omen Hawk. Like, I could take a 4 hit. Okay. Block here. And Brittle Steel. Okay, this is the best play. I thought about doing the whole Brittle Steel plus Culling Strike, but right now I threaten killing his Zed. So if he has Twin Disciplines, he's going to want to use it to pump his power. But if he does that, then I can Culling Strike. Okay. Culling Strike? Yeah, this deck doesn't run Nopify a lot. I'm not terribly surprised that worked. Yeah, full swing. It's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage my opponent's not really going to want to take. And then I can play this Glory Seeker afterwards, banking a Flash Freeze. I suppose he could have had Concussive Palm there too, but if he uses 4 mana on Concussive Palm, that's actually not that bad for us. Wow, weird. River Shaper. Huh. That's wild. There he is. There's the Yeti. So I can Yeti plus Trifarian? Plus Flash Freeze? Okay. Yeah. So that is a Zed.
What did we catch?
I have an Enraged Yeti. Okay. Wild. Oh. Troll Chance, nice. We like that. What's the chance that he has Brittle Steel? This is such a weird deck. Okay, so this is just like Zed. It's not necessarily a elusive deck. That's a pretty wild choice. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the best, right? He's really disrespecting the the potential freezes out of me. Do I play this? I could play this. I think we full swing first though.
You're mine.
Yeah.
Do you like magic?
He has to lose his whole board.
From them.
Oh, that's brutal.
I am a true master.
Well, you're gonna draw me a card? That's sweet of you. Okay, so he's dead regardless. I was trying to think of who we're going to use this troll chant on. And the answer is apparently because I can't do anything to prevent this from killing my Yeti. So the best thing I can do is prevent him from that's actually kind of cool too. Prevent him from drawing a card off River Shaper. And maybe he has like Twin Disciplines and he pumps the power, but yeah. I kind of had a feeling the answer was going to be no. Not after he already used a spell to protect his Zed. Yeah, sure, why not?
Behind you, a Yeti! Yetis? There's no such thing.
Pretty far off from leveling up this Ashe, but oh lord. Well, that's sweet. We'd like to see that.
Only the worthy.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him attack before I play this Ashe. Okay. Anything else you pull kills a Rhyme Fang. So if you're just trying to block, it's not gonna work. How much do we expect him to have like a Deny as one of his last two cards? Because we can go for this Reckoning.
Shadows cut deep as any weapon.
Okay, so this is worth losing. That's worth losing. Well, I can't actually do Reckoning this turn. So we can definitely lose that. And we're gonna lose these no matter what we do. Well, pretty much. It's not worth saving them, let's put it that way. Yeah, let's do this. Force him to have an answer. And I can still play Ashe plus Glory Seeker, so that's pretty sweet. One more Zed bites the dust.
Light the signal fire.
He cleared my board pretty nicely, so you know.
Victory requires
That's sweet of him.
a sharp blade.
Oh, and a Rhyme Fang. Yeah, that seems fair. What a weird deck. It's like IT or yeah, it's IF elusives minus all of the elusives, i.e. the cards that make it good. So that's a really weird one, but yeah, we'll take it. On to the next. Okay, Turbo TF Aphelios. I'm gonna be real honest, I hate Aphelios decks, not even because they're that good or they're that broken, they're just really annoying to play against. Is it worth keeping a Reckoning? It might be. But then can I keep a Flash Freeze? I don't think I can. Well, that's a late game answer. Ooh, Brittle Steel's great. That is phenomenal. We're probably not going to play turn 2 Glory Seeker because we're probably just going to Iceveil Archer and Frostbite that. Okay. Well, I mean, these are late game options. It's just not really what we were hoping for yet. Okay. Weird. Main deck parlay.
Devotion to battle.
I really don't know what to do with something like that. Well, that makes Glory Seeker a lot more concerning, but we'll play it. See if he's got another one. Okay, well, with that being the case, dear lord, this one card has been responsible for 6 points of damage. This is definitely looking currently to be one of the better Aphelios decks out there, in my opinion, i.e. one that's not not slow by any means. Yes, I'm willing to trade a Brittle Steel for a Pale Cascade. The fact that he would use Pale Cascade there means that he probably doesn't have great answers to anything else. I'm guessing Calibrum, maybe? It's the typical Aphelios trick is to take Calibrum, and that does kill my Glory Seeker. So if he took something else, I'd be very surprised. Ooh. I don't think we're gonna be lucky enough to get to play this beforehand. Oh, he took Crescendum? Oh, because it phases Calibrum. Okay. Yeah, this is still worth it, even into the Boxtopus. Okay, well, that card, not as much worth it. Alright, good chance here we're going to fight for board presence. So he's going to Calibrum Glory Seeker, almost certainly. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Okay. Yep. That's fine. So we're going to take 5 here, because he's going to probably Calibrum here, and then... And he doesn't even need to. He can actually just open swing, I suppose. Since we can't block. We're going to take, in theory, 5 here. Yep, there's the Calibrum. Which, that pulls Gravitum. Ugh.
Ring the flippin' bell! Where are you off to?
Yep. Better to do this and preserve my board than preserve my health. As funny as that may sound. I think we have to actually kill Twisted Fate here. Although, there's arguments for doing something else, like killing Aphelios. How close is he? 2 of 8? Because it's also going to be easier to kill Twisted Fate with Reckoning.
Pain is nothing.
I'm expecting Gravitum on Sejuani here. I will be extraordinarily surprised if that's not the case.
Through darkness.
Because if he doesn't Gravitum, then Sejuani is just going to eat his Aphelios. He grabbed Crescendum, so he's going to get Calibrum off this.
Oh, great! Just a wee bit late.
Attack.
Yeah, that's the best. Okay, he's going to take the full 5. Interesting. Oh, Lord. Okay, that is scary. We might not live long enough to do a Reckoning. Well, I talked crap about these decks being slow. They are definitely doing their best not to be. What is Calibrum? That's another Gravitum, so he's got 2 Gravitums in hand. Are these wrong? I can't remember. Are they wrong when they tell you what it's going to be next? Does it always phase the next one? Or is it a choice? I can't remember. Alright. Play more cards. Play more cards. Play another card to attack with. Play like another Burblefish. Ah, boo. Boo!
Face me, coward.
He's thinking about it. Okay, yes. Draw a card. This is probably worth it, right? I mean, there's a number of things he could do to punish it, but
You are its voice.
he has Gravitum though, so I was thinking about playing Captain Farron next turn, but he has Gravitum. Our health is low. We have to start being pretty... Ugh. We have to start dealing damage, and Captain Farron's not the best way to do it. Not yet, anyways. That's gonna be a problem. He could potentially kill me this turn. Not with that, though.
Ooh, you wee scruff.
Okay. Ooh, we are so far from winning. Yeah, we are in as bad a position as we could be in this matchup. That is not bad.
Locked and ready.
Although, question is, I think we just fire that. I don't think we can keep letting him get moon weapons every turn.
Save the host.
And that's probably our best play, bank the mana. And then just hope we get, like, Frostbite off the top. Harsh winds in case he has flyers or Coven Ways or one of a billion things that can kill us. Yeah, I've been pretty unlucky with my draws tonight. It's pretty astounding. Am I willing to swing with this? I don't know that I am. Because I really do not want to trade this into a Pale Cascade. Or a Parlay, for that matter.
Night flowers upon my blade.
And I'd still be trading into either. Or not either, but I'd be trading into a Pale Cascade. And we are dead. Yep. That's the game. Unfortunate. My draws tonight have been absolutely terrible. Some of the worst I've ever seen on this deck, so that's impressive. But at least my opponent made this a quicker game than a typical Aphelios deck, so respect to them for that. On to the next. Okay, discard aggro. Interesting. Alright, so we're gonna need to build up a board fairly quickly. I'm actually gonna keep all of these. This is some good board presence early, and then Reckoning is probably the best answer to what my opponent has. So we just need to find something that lets us cast Reckoning. And then Troll Chant's a great way for reducing their damage output on a key turn. And also potentially keeping something of mine alive, so this is a much, much better hand than we've been getting all night. Might still not be enough. It is discard aggro. They can win out of nowhere, so. But this is as good as what we could hope for. Okay. That's, pretty sweet.
They're out there. I'll spot them.
Okay. I think it's probably worth swinging, right? Yeah. Get that damage through, and then we can play Trapper.
The party has arrived.
See, that's what I was assuming, and that's why we didn't play Trapper first, because I kind of just figured that Draven was coming next. And then Yeti gives us an answer to a wide board. Although this has been an incredibly slow hand out of discard aggro from the looks of it, so.
Rules are made to be broken.
Let's see how much he sets himself up for failure here or not. Oh no, don't do that. Oh no, don't do that to yourself.
Over there.
I mean, okay, so he could have discarding survival skills, but it's better to make him use that now, regardless. If he doesn't, though, he's in massive amounts of trouble. The fact that he's thinking this long tells me that he probably just made the worst mistake of his life. Oh no! Oh no! Really? It's Frostbite Midrange, man. You can't be caught like that. You can't be caught sleeping like that. How have we not hit our Yeti yet? That's crazy.
Hey, buddy, what you doing?
Ooh, wow, he takes the full hit. Are you crazy? Did we, like, break his spirit with that last turn? Is that what happened? Alright, well, we have our 5 power now. I'm gonna guess he has visions. But again, we're 20-8 right now. That's about the best situation we could be in. Okay. Yep.
I stand for Noxus. I gotta work with this joker.
The question is, do we do it? I think we do. We're gonna lose our stuff too, which is unfortunate, but I think he loses slightly more. Let's see if he all-ins to try and keep his Draven alive. Oh, he is going to. Okay.
Time for the moneymakers.
Well, guess we go for that. This is a rough trade, to be quite frank. This is a very, very rough trade. But we will make that trade. 3 cards left on both sides. Alright, we will play this in Rage Yeti. See what he does. Okay.
I have the best job.
Do I just do this? He could have a Jinx.
Sharpen the blade, secure the kill. For glory! Face me!
This is gonna hurt for you. Now we're cooking.
Did he just pitch an augmented experimenter? That's a wild play. Does that mean Jinx? Wait, but if he plays Jinx, she doesn't level up because he has a spinning axe. What a weird play. Augmented is so good.
I'm on the verge of something.
So, did he have another one in hand? Or was he just,
Science without a little risk.
just top deck city? Okay, well, I'll play this, I think. Will I play that? Maybe not.
It's Draven time!
A true Freljordian welcome.
Okay. That's a lethal number of decimates. Yeah, I was gonna say, we might just outburn the burn deck, and in fact, my opponent seems to agree with that. So, very good hand on our part, obviously, considering what the ending result was in health, but my opponent clearly getting a little bit unlucky there. I won't even begin to deny that. Them having so little is pretty shocking. But yeah, we'll take it. On to the next. Alright. Guessing that's Bilgewater Burn. Just with TF instead of Misfortune, which is a bit weird, but we need some more early game stuff. That'll work. That will work. Brittle Steel plus Glory Seeker is pretty strong. And I'll probably go for that. There's some downside to this, but we'll go for this.
A sharp blade.
That's a higher value target for something like a Make It Rain or Parlay, which honestly both are things that I could consider my opponent having.
Nothing left when I'm done.
Huh.
For glory, you're mine.
Yeah, I think that's probably the That's probably the safest bet. That's a scary thing to let him keep. What is this? Keg control? Some very, very weird keg control. Oh. Well, that's unlucky. That is the worst thing you can get off of a petty officer. I have been there, done that. Am I willing to trade? I think so, right?
Stay back.
Yeah, I think we're willing to take that. And then we'll pass, and that way we can bank Troll Chant, so we can play Ashe plus keep Troll Chant up. Probably our best play.
I will unite the frail.
And this way he doesn't have great options if he plays a TF. Which I think is probably the most likely to occur thing. Best case scenario, he TF red cards. TF gold card, much worse for us. Which, mind you, it's still not the absolute worst, but yeah. Yup.
All that glitters.
Now, what do I go for here? So we're obviously killing TF. But, do I Troll Chant or do I Brittle Steel? I think we Brittle Steel. This is pretty far from leveling up Gangplank, but we are also pretty far from leveling up Sejuani. Ooh. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so we're gonna Babbling Bjerg here. Can I take that? Or should I fight for that? I think we're gonna fight for that. I think at this point we just want to slow down his Gangplank. Ooh. Ow! That's rude. Well, at least Ashe lived. Okay, we're gonna kill that. I think. Is that what I want to do? Yeah. I think that's what I want to do.
Pain is nothing.
Ashe is pretty close to leveling.
Safety will cost you.
Stand and fight.
You gotta believe me.
Swiftly now.
Yeah. For that extra frostbite. Downsides to this, obviously, he could have Death's Hand again, and then we lose her, but we do have another Ashe in hand, so that's why I'm willing to take that risk in that trade. Did he? I didn't even notice if he had a... Oh, he obviously had Allegiance, because he pulled a warning shot.
It was right on my tail.
Okay. Do I draw cards here? I think we draw cards here.
Line up.
Ooh. Alright.
They're out there. I'll spot them.
Yeah, he can't attack because I will block. We just go for a full swing here, right? If he doesn't have a way to kill my stuff, he'll take... Yeah, that's lethal. Alright. Yeah, level up. Avarosa's with me, or whatever she says. Now get out my way so my opponent can die.
Ride onward.
What you got? Yep. You've triggered plunder. You've triggered plunder. Oh, okay. Wow, that's a lot of warning shots. Yeah. Weird deck, but we will take that.
Over. Now we rebuild.
No complaint on that one. That was... So basically it was keg control, I think, is what that was. That's why we saw Death's Hand and we didn't see stuff like Noxie and Fervor. It's basically Bilgewater Burn, but just stripped for keg control. Obviously it's got to be mostly Bilgewater because he hit Allegiance off of the Yordle Grifter. I'm guessing he had, and that probably, and this is another big reason for the open swing there, is he probably had Riptide Rex in hand. But yeah, I mean, neat little deck. Okay, Fizzlusives. This is a bit scary. Frostbite's gonna be huge. Reckoning can be good too. But can I... So Frostbite's huge, but I'm not sure I can keep that. Reckoning's big though, and something... Ooh, okay. This hand's way better. I'm glad I mulliganed that. We have our 5 power for the Reckoning. We have early game aggression / blockers. I can get this Trapper next turn, or not next turn, turn after. If he plays a Ballistic Bot, we'll take the hit. Because that's better than losing my, oh, wow, and a 5 power Assessor? That is gnarly. We love that. Ooh, Icevale Archer could be big, too. Yeah, I mean, this is going well for us right now. It can go bad so quick, though. They also have plenty of ways to kill this Ashe, so she's not entirely likely to live. Yeah, I think right now we fight over board, so we'll play that and then we'll play Glory Seeker. And that way we don't take damage. Is it worth playing other things? Yes. Let's see if he plays... Probably the most disastrous thing is TF red card, because he can red card kill these two, and then he'll still have mana up for like a get excited. Can I play that? I think I can. Okay. That is not the scariest. Okay. Swing like this, swing like this, swing like that, that, and pull that. That's, yeah, that's lethal, right? Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay. Well, board wipe. Board wipe and he's down to 1. It's going to be hard for him to deal with my board at this point. I don't know what's going on in my opponent's hand right now, but it's got to be something bad. Because this is just some outrageously unlucky Fizzlusives from what I've seen. I mean, like, unless he actively sabotaged the deck, nothing I'm seeing here is, yeah, like, I love that deck. I play it a lot. So this is literally the nightmare scenario. Yep, we'll pass. Right now, we're just keeping a Reckoning. All I need is one attacker to make it through. Now, I have a number of things that can die to his stuff. If he has a TF, he should have played that long ago. Okay, this is kind of what I expected. He's going to go for a big elusive turn, while leaving up plenty of blockers. Presumably. Yep. Okay. And that's the GG. Yep. What a weird game. Though, to be fair, I usually beat Fizzlusives with this deck. I played it before while climbing to Masters, so it's possible that's just a good matchup for us, but I've seen people say it's good on both sides, so that was just weird. That was a really, really weird game. My opponent's hand must have just imploded or something. I think based on where that Ballistic Bot was, he probably pulled that off the pick a card. So, yeah, I really don't know what happened there, but that could not have been good. We must have gotten a little bit lucky there, because that matchup should have been a lot more difficult than what that was. But yeah, not bad. Yeah, all right. On to the wrap-up, I guess. All right, so how do we do in our matches? We went 4-1 in recorded matches. I'm currently 4-2 in Masters, and then I played the game or the deck once in. If you saw my post on Twitter, I played it once in the climb to Masters, and I went 1-0 with it. So That's not that many games for this season, but very good. It's a 71% win rate right now. I've played the deck a handful of times in the past, on and off again. I always end up coming back to it because it is one of those consistent decks that's been fairly good for quite a while. At worst, a B tier deck, so it's been good for a while. It's still good now. I wasn't originally going to play for this week, though, to be quite honest. Just to give a quick look behind the curtain again, I was going to play IT Elusives because the flight got printed, and I was like, maybe this is finally enough to bring that old elusive shell back with the Kinku Wayfinder, and now we'll do Targon instead. We'll run the flight, we'll run maybe Zoe, maybe Pale Cascade. I'll decide between those two or whatever, and so played it, and in normals, I had a positive win record, but there was a problem. The games I was winning through opponent mistakes or just extraordinary luck, where I'm just like, wow, I could have died to like 100 things. And I took it out into rank, and I got absolutely hosed by Aphelios TF, which I know we lost to that deck as well now, but like that one was not even remotely close. If you thought it was one-sided in the game in this episode, the one with the IT Elusives was even more one-sided. They just absolutely ripped through my deck. So yeah, that deck's just bad. I was so hopeful. Kinku Wayfinder could be back, but yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So I decided to pivot and play a deck that I knew would be good, and one I have a fair bit of experience playing in the past. And it was supposed to get an episode earlier this season, but then Fizz Elusives was just so fun and so good that I was just like, I had to play Fizz Elusives because it was competitive. S-tier Fizz, I have to play it. So Frostbite Midrange lost its slot in On the Grind to that, so good to bring it back and see the deck again, give it a chance. It's actually the first time I've covered it in On the Grind. I've played it a lot in the past in a number of different seasons, so it feels inappropriate that the deck never got its episode. So at least this week got to give it, and the win record's pretty good, which is funny because I'm also going to say that I'm considering some heavy changes to my list, despite that 71% win record, and including in the climb before Masters, I was playing this version of the list, same exact setup, same exact cards, but it is tweaked pretty heavily to deal with Lee Sin. That's why there's so much Frostbite, and now with him kind of falling off a little bit, and the rise of other things, it's tempting to drop some of that Frostbite for just more aggro, although it's hard to say because like the loss to Aphelios TF was pretty unlucky. They had a very tweaked for early game aggression version with Solari Soldier and all that, and they had Parlay, which I feel like most of the versions of the deck aren't playing that. At least I'm not seeing them. I haven't really played the deck that much myself, but I'm not seeing it. So really that's kind of how I feel about it, but they probably got a little bit lucky, but we got really unlucky. Our hand was really bad, didn't have a lot of early game action, which that's going to be our best way to win that matchup is to run them down or get like a fast leveled Ashe, and we had neither of those. So that's kind of a little disappointing, and maybe the wrong thing to take away from this deck is that that matchup, because they got lucky, I got unlucky, so maybe it's worth keeping the Frostbite for fast leveling Ashe. Fast leveling Ashe is still really good right now. In fact, it's almost better than ever, I would say. So, yeah, it's hard to say. And then Captain Farron, I'm not 100% sold on anymore. I think people calling the death of Ezreal Draven because of the Farron nerf were extremely overreactive. I think the Ezreal Draven deck doesn't really care about that nerf to Farron. I think the 2 Decimate is fine. Playing that deck a lot, I never really cared. Having played this deck pre-nerf and post-nerf, I think we do care about that 3rd Decimate for Frostbite Midrange. The 3 Decimate was actually pretty big because since we don't have a lot of Overwhelmers, it's very easy for people to gum up the board against us and for us to not deal a ton of damage. And in those situations, having that 3rd Decimate can be really good to close out the game because we actually could need 12 points of burn. So definitely unfortunate, the nerf for our end anyways. It's still a good nerf, but that does hurt us a bit, and because of that it might be more worth considering dropping Farron I still like it for that little extra gap closer, but yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely a fair bit worse than it was. I think I'd still keep it, but I could see a lot of argument for getting rid of it. And then again, the Frostbite package is highly debatable whether you want that or if you want something with a little more aggression to it. But yeah, on the whole, deck is really good. It's a great deck for grinding. I do still highly recommend it. I think it's still fine. It's really going to depend on how that Aphelios matchup shakes out, because there is a lot of Aphelios right now. And I've talked poor of Aphelios. I do think the Bilgewater version is substantially better than what we're seeing. I think having Burblefish in addition to Aphelios is a really, really good addition to the deck. So I think that deck actually has some legitimate chance to make it to the top. So if that matchup is bad, again, hard to take from the sample size of one, considering everything that happened. But if that deck is good and the matchup is bad, then I could see this deck start to fall off a bit. But if that's not the case, or if at least the matchup is a lot closer or even, then this deck is going to be a great workhorse. It's just super reliable. Many decks can't deal with that many 5-power units that quickly. So yeah, it did well. It did well for me on the climb. It's doing well for me now in Masters. And again, 71% win record is nothing to bat an eye at. That's for sure. Or nothing to downplay. It's very, very solid. So yeah, I highly recommend it for the time being. We'll see how the meta shakes out, but yeah, it's still doing well. It's been doing well most of the season, and yeah, a great pickup if that's the kind of deck you think would be fun. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe for more videos just like it.